And we know that a lot of people who are buying these days are probably going to end up refinancing when that happens. And if that's not what happens, then you'll probably still be glad that you got whatever interest rate you got anyway, because years from now they're higher, right? So it's not a losing scenario. Hey folks, I'm Michael Krasilovsky with Team K Realty out of RE/MAX in Corvallis, and we're joined today by Joshua Kittel, an outstanding local mortgage broker from Cross Country Mortgage. Joshua, I really appreciate taking the time to join us. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you. As always, I love doing these types of videos. As you know, I love education. I do a lot of education myself, both through just the local nonprofit organizations and my YouTube channel. So I just love the opportunity to come talk.
Check out his channel too, by the way. Yeah, we've got great content going in a bunch of places. So today we're gonna have a little jam session for our viewers here, because we're in a market where interest rates have gone up, predictably so, right? The Fed said they were gonna do this. This is not a surprise. But we wanna talk about a few key points here for our buyers and buyers/borrowers, right? Should buyers try to time the market? What criteria do you need to have to actually be confident in, pulling the trigger, so to speak, and taking action to buy a home? The concept of, the longevity of the home versus the longevity of the interest rate, and the opportunity cost and why it's so powerful to own. So we're going to touch on a bunch of things, and then we'll wrap up with a brief discussion of some of these specific strategies too on the lending side of things with ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, these 2-1 buy downs, stuff that I wouldn't even pretend to be an expert on. And then some advice for our sellers in this market too, if you happen to be having trouble selling your home because of what interest rates are doing. So we've got a solid little jam session there, and we're gonna dive right in.
All right.
So the first thing that we wanna talk about here is, do we think that buyers should be trying to time the market? Because this comes up a lot, right? Buyers they're worried because their payments have gone up with interest rates.
Trying to time the market in both, there's two types of timing. When's the lowest value? If we think values are coming down, I wanna buy at the bottom. And rates too. So in the past we've seen rates go down and people try to time that. So here's the problem with timing the market. And I'm in the business and I study, and I'm very hands-on compared to what the average buyer is. And I have never been able to time the market. Okay, I've never gotten the lowest rate, and that's what I do for a living. If you look at the big traders on Wall Street and stuff, they're going to tell you that's the worst thing you can try to do is time the market. It's just hard to time the absolute tops, the absolute bottoms, but you can get into a range. And so I think the question becomes, if you're in the perspective of buying a home with values, because right now as we make this, it's March 2023.
St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, St. Patty's Day. So there has been a little bit of softening in the market with this jump in rates, which we'll talk about later. So the question is now, buyers, last year we had buyers wanting not to buy, trying to, because they thought the market, would top and then to come back down, and they missed the timing. They kept going. And so now the same buyers are in the market saying, okay, well, I'm ready to buy now, but now I want to buy at this bottom. The problem with that, again, is you never know the bottom until you're well past the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is, do you buy before or after this bottom?
And I think an important perspective there is, you're alluding to like, hey, when we talk about buyers trying to time the market, they're trying to time a bunch of different things, right? They're talking about trying to time getting the best interest rate. They're also talking about trying to time getting the most favorable home value for themselves. And that's why we made actually a headlines versus home sales video recently about that second part, because you see a lot of stories on the news about like, home prices, dropping big time, and it's like, okay, maybe it was just overpriced on day one. It doesn't mean home values are actually plummeting.
Right, huge difference there.
Huge difference.
People don't understand that there's a difference between that.
Yeah, and we are seeing a lot of home price tags dropping, but that's because the homes were overpriced because the market's changed, and it's not like it was 6 or 12 months ago. Right. But the home values have actually felt very stable in the grand scheme of things lately.
And I would also add to that, I think in a market we're in now where there's a little bit more equilibrium between buyer and seller, that you have particular homes that were way overbought because out of desperation, just lack of inventory, you overpaid for that. I always like to use the example of a manufactured home next to a train track in a flood zone. In a crazy market, it priced out like everybody else. Yeah. In reality, it's not. And so those homes you see disproportionately dropping and correcting. And so if you use that as your stat, I think you're getting kind of a false picture here, because you're picking and choosing like, well, here's my example. It's like, well, yeah, but that's a bad home. What does the average good home in a good neighborhood that's desirable, that's what I would use as my
that doesn't
my
have a
benchmark.
trifecta of challenges.
Right, exactly. So that's what I would look at too, and I think that's different.
So what advice do you give your buyer? I was gonna say buyers, your borrowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you give your clients when they're trying to just time the market and get the lowest interest rate possible? How do you help them overcome what might be really a mental hurdle because we're all afraid of spending too much money?
Absolutely. So again, I'm going to just put myself in what I personally have done when trying to time the market. And again, with buyers and stuff, you have two things you're trying to time: the lowest value in the home if you think it's declining, and you want the lowest rate. But these are at odds, because usually when values are going down, it's because rates went up and you've already missed the bottom on the rates.
Yeah.
Well, and vice versa. So it's kind of hard to hit them both at one time, but you might be able to, with patience, get them both down the line. So we'll talk about that. But so when it comes to just rates myself, for me, if I look at that and I can do a refinance today, and that refinance can save me money over the next 2 to 3 years, and I plan to be in this house for more than 3 years, I'm going to consider doing it now.
You mean
Now,
a purchase or a refinance?
On a refinance. On a refinance. So if I'm looking at a refi and rates have dropped, do I want to keep timing it? Because again, I've told you, I've never personally have got the lowest rate, and I'm a lender. It's because I don't know when it's going to be. But what I do know is when rates change, they change like that. They change like that. So those who just try to time it, I mean, within a week, you missed it, boom, and they're up. And you can see rates go up over a week, 0.5%. And all of a sudden, you've lost a lot of ground. So they come down slow, they go up fast.
And on the home buying side of things, not just trying to lock in the best rate, even if you're seeing that happen, right? And because we've got great communication with our clients. So okay, the lender says, hey, rates are really good right now. We should lock this in. This is the right timing. Well, that doesn't mean there's actually a home for sale.
Right.
I mean, we set up a market watch search a week or so ago for some folks. That was a pretty wide open market watch search in the Mid Valley here, and there were only 45 matches. Right. And that's less than there used to be on New Year's Day, right? And half of those were new construction builds, and that wasn't what they happened to be looking for anyway. So trying to time both of those things, it doesn't seem like a setup for success, right?
Yeah, it's hard, to do that. There are programs you can do that are called like lock-in shops, where you do these extended lock periods, and then you go before you actually have. Because usually you don't lock a rate until you're under contract.
Right.
The problem with those is there's an opportunity cost. You pay more for that rate because you're asking the lender to hedge it for 3 or 4 months.
I was going to say, you're going to pay for that.
So you're paying something. So you got, it's not that it's bad, but look at it.
Yeah.
Really, I think from the standpoint of timing the market, we sometimes get too focused on trying to save that every little eighth of a rate. In reality, remember that vast majority of people will not hold a loan for 30 years. So stop looking at like, well, yeah, but that's $50 over 30 years. You're not going to have it for 30 years. Okay?
Yeah, that's just not the reality.
It's just bad math.
No one's doing that. Yeah.
Wall Street makes a ton of money trading these things in mass quantities, and they think that this loan's going to last less than 10 years. So there's your...
And historically, we're seeing people maybe hold their loans before refinancing or selling and moving for 7 years, maybe 7 to 9 years on the long side of things. I mean, no one's actually paying that for 30 years in general. Yes, you can mention in the comments below that you're the one person ever who actually paid a mortgage for 30 years without changing it. But that's not the norm, right? No,
it's not. And yeah, you're right. I think on average, home ownership used to be every 7 to 9 years. It's a little bit longer now because of the market we're in. That's starting to change a little bit, but still, we're still talking about less than 10 years. And within that, refis usually happen for one reason or another. I mean, refis happen for debt consolidation, lower interest rates, home improvements, or unfortunately, perhaps like a divorce or something like that. So even though you might live in that house 10 years, which is the average, you're probably not going to be in that loan that long.
So let's use that as a good segue there, right? Okay. So we've got this saying that I don't think we invented in our team. We copied it from someone else who was even smarter way back when. Mm-hmm. We always tell people, like, when it's the right house for you, at the right price, meaning at a price that works, right? You have to be able to afford it on day one. And at the right timing, because as you just alluded to, there's a lot of reasons why people move, and it's usually not because they happen to be the best interest rate. It's because they had a job change, got married, got divorced, had kids, retired, right? Those are the reasons that are driving changes in the housing market.
Right.
Right house, right price, and right timing for you, that's when you should be feeling confident taking action on the purchase of a house. And that doesn't come down to, is today the lowest rate that we've seen in the past month?
Right.
So you've got this great saying, and I don't remember if you invented it or not, but I give you credit for it when we'll talk about it. and it has to do with your relationship with the house versus your relationship with the rate.
So
do you want to
marry the house and date the rate?
Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, no, actually, that's not a term I can take. I don't know who, so I'll have to say anonymous. I'm not sure who originally coined that.
All right.
But it's very, very good. Marry the house and date the rate. And the reason for that, again, is ultimately it's the house it needs to be the right house. And you never know when that's going to come along. So when it does, focus more on the house. Rates may not be where you want it. And again, you have to afford it. But people who are thinking that rates are high and I need to wait for rates to come down before I buy, a couple of bad things are going to happen there. One is they may never come down. Now, I do think rates are coming down, but they may not. Secondly, that house, the right house, it's on the market now. It may not be there when you need it. So you might lose the perfect house that you like. And then secondly, when rates do come down, housing market heats up. From a buyer perspective, you have less negotiating power as rates are falling and the housing market's heating up than you do in the current market.
And that's definitely something that our current buyers are actually really enjoying, and we are as agents too. Noel, our buyer specialist on our team, and myself, when we're representing buyers right now, we feel like we can actually have a conversation with the seller, aside from just please take our money, right? Like we get to actually negotiate things and make sure that everyone feels comfortable with the with the terms and even getting some repairs done that a year ago or a few years ago would have never been on the table. I mean, it's a good time to buy in that regard. It feels a lot more humane, and I think that's important. So marry the house, date the rate, but
and what that means, actually, just explain that a little bit more. So marry the house means buy now. It's a house, it works for you. I'm going to buy it now with what the rates are.
When it's the right house,
if
right
rates
price,
go
right
down
time.
in the future, you're refinance. So I'm not going to have that rate as long as I have the house. And so don't look at it as if at this rate that I've got that's now at, say, 7% in this current market, like that's forever. That's not. The house is more forever, even though it's not in this analogy. It's forever. The rate's temporary. So if you want the best deal, in my opinion, you buy the house now with a higher rate where you can drive a better deal. As rates drop, you refinance, and you got today's value in the home, because I say you refinance a year from later, that house is more expensive now, but you've already locked in the price today, and then you get that lower rate in the future, and that's, to me, the win-win.
Yeah, and that's a really good segue into the next part too there, which is that there's an opportunity cost of waiting because there's a lot of power in owning real estate long-term. So we talked a little bit ahead of time about this. Both Joshua and I are homeowners. We're also both real estate investors. And I'm actually writing a book right now that I need to get published because I'm starting to actually tell people I'm writing it. But the rough draft is just about done. And the whole point of that is so that people can see from our investment journey, like, hey, here's how we made it happen. But even if you don't replicate my journey, here's the power of just getting one rental, just getting that first one going. Because look at the cash flow growth and look at the equity growth over 10, 12 years. I mean, it's major, right? I mean, there's a lot of power to actually owning. And I feel like people are just so afraid on the investment side of things of having to fix a toilet, and they talk themselves out of buying an investment property. Or on the owner side of things, people are just so afraid of overpaying, which we get because none of us want to, but they're so afraid of overpaying that they don't take action for sometimes years at a time, and home prices have gone up, 6 figures, and rates are higher anyway. And it's just like, we want to make sure that you've got the tools in your tool belt, the information to be making informed decisions and having that confidence.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the thing too, like you said, pricing now seems high, but I can tell you, I've been doing this for, I think, 19 years now. And if I go back every 5 years, and every 5 years the conversation was, man, home values have really gotten high. Home affordability is tough. Yeah. And so the power of owning property is that long-term, that compounding interest that continues to make values go up. It works for you. I would also say, too, that I guess it depends. Michael and I are both long-term investors. Yeah. There are those who try to, I might say, speculate. So in a hot market, they try to get something, kind of fix it, flip it, sell it, and so they're going to keep it for less than 6 months. That's a different style and much more susceptible to market fluctuations.
Totally different risk profile there.
But yeah, Michael and I are both of the idea, hey, I'm going to buy this house with the idea that I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
I'm going to die.
I don't want to sell it. It's making money and it's going to keep making money. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Or maybe just sell it to do a 1031 exchange, but that's a separate video, right?
Yeah.
So So it's really important to have that mindset. Just wanted you to be able to keep that in mind. There's an opportunity cost of waiting that we don't want you to spend, and there's a lot of power in owning long term. And odds are the rates are going to go down, at some point later. And we know that a lot of people who are buying these days are probably going to end up refinancing when that happens. And if that's not what happens, then you'll probably still be glad that you got whatever interest rate you got anyway, because years from now they're higher, right? So it's not a losing scenario. I mean, there's definitely options there as long as our clients are making informed decisions on day one and buying a house that they can still afford, even if they'd rather pay less, because everyone always wants to pay less, right? All right, so now let's segue into a couple of specific loan products, and maybe we just do because this is going to be like a vlog style, or that's not the right word, but this is going to be a long video. So maybe we just do a quick overview about adjustable rate mortgages, about 2-1 buy downs, and then some tips for sellers. And if there's demand at a time later on, we can do a much more deep dive into those specific things.
Yeah.
But do you feel up for doing just
Absolutely.
like the last part of the jam session with us?
Sure. So,
Okay.
As we just mentioned, in the market we find ourselves in we have higher interest rates, and because that the housing market has cooled. By cooling, it doesn't mean values are going backwards, but they're not. It's
not frozen. It's not
Right.
deep freeze. It's cooled. It's humane.
Right.
Yeah.
So as an advantage, believe it or not, these higher rates are an advantage for buyers because it's presenting a window that you have not had the last 2 years where sellers are willing to negotiate. And so there's a few different things that you can work in based on what's important to you as the buyer that the seller can help with. And again, this is not the case when the market heats up with low rates. So it is actually, I know it's weird to say that, but I'm saying
there are advantages.
There are advantages to being a person who says, you know what, I'm not afraid, I'm going to buy in this market. So one of the ones that's very popular, it seems to be most popular with new construction builders. They've really grabbed onto this, but this really works for anybody who's trying to sell a house or for a buyer who might want to negotiate this. And it's called a 2-1 buy down. And there's different variations. There's a 3-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down, and 1-1 buy down. So we'll just start with the 2. So what it basically means is that we're going to temporarily buy down the interest rates to 2% below whatever the actual rate is for that first year. That gives the buyer a much lower payment. Then in the second year, they get a 1% below the market rate. And then at year 3, they go to the full 30-year fixed rate from there on out. So what this is doing, again, is allowing a buyer, for whatever reason, who says, you know what, even though I can afford, because you do have to afford the full rate, even though I can afford that, for reasons that I have, I want that lower payment. Maybe it's because you're cost of moving, or maybe it's because you had to take a lot of your cash to get into the house and you want to redo that, or you have promotions coming down the line, whatever the case might be. The way this works is the seller, so what we do as a lender is based on the loan amount you've got and what you're going to buy down, we calculate how much interest is not being paid for now by the buyer because the rate's artificially low that first 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then the seller agrees to pay that. So it essentially goes into like an escrow account so that the lower than full payment that's being made by the buyer, they pull from this here. The investor gets the full actual rate that earned on that, and they get that benefit. And then now let's just say a year into it though, rates drop, and now the buyer's like, well, great, I've got this artificially low rate for 2 years, but rates have dropped, and now they're 1% lower. And they do a refinance, that portion of that prepaid interest that was set aside
from the seller,
if
that's how you structure
it, that's how it will be structured by the seller. Goes as a principal reduction to the loan, so you still get that benefit as the buyer. You're still getting the benefit, so you don't lose anything there.
That was me having the realization that if we're talking about like a 2-1 buy down, of course it's the seller buying it down. Because if it's the buyer buying it down, then they're just spending their own money on their own funds. So
and it doesn't make sense.
That doesn't do anything.
Doesn't help. So
So
that's what a 2-1, and that's what a 2-1 buy down is. And again, the advantage of that is it helps for whatever the reason, motivating factor by the buyer, they get that little bit lower payment. Well, actually, 2% can be, to sign the loan amount can be.
I mean, that could be massive. I didn't realize that that's literally what that meant. So we're not quoting interest rates. This is not a commitment to lend. All the usual disclaimers and caveats apply. But if we're making up numbers and there was an interest rate that was like here, making up numbers, if there was an interest rate that was like 6.5, then a 2-1 buy down means that the first year the buyer is actually paying a 4.5. Like it's literally 2 percentage points.
Yep.
So that's a massive difference. Okay.
Yep.
So that's an exciting opportunity for for a seller to potentially offer that to someone.
Right.
Because instead of just being on the market and being stale donuts on the market for like 6 months or something, and then just like lowering the price, they could advertise, hey, we'll help you with the interest rate. And they hopefully wouldn't have to make as big of a concession in that regard, but the buyer's payment changes a lot, right?
Right. And that's the thing, I think, again, all too often, sometimes sellers focus on the wrong thing. Price is important too. There are pricing strategies. I mean, if you're right to that mix a little bit, you can break down into that, $350 to $399 price point versus being at $405. So now you're in that $400 to $425 price point. Dropping the price $5,000 gets you into some different viewing. But the reality is when you drop your home value by say $20,000, that doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for a buyer.
It changes their payment by a few bucks a day,
right?
Right?
$20, $30 difference, that's it. The cash to close doesn't change hardly at all because that's fixed. I mean, I pretty much say almost zero difference on my closing cost. My down payment, well, if I'm putting 5% down, 5% of $20,000, not really shaking my world up, right? So it's not doing much. But that same $20,000 being used to do a buy down, that now gets a person excited the fact that, hey, I just don't feel comfortable, even though I can afford it, because again, they do have to afford that.
Yeah.
Or the other option we talked about is doing a permanent buy down. And so what I mean by that is instead of temporarily buying down the rate for 2% 1 year and then 1% 1 year, you actually say, I'll pay the discount points for you. I will buy down your rate. So now maybe you don't get as far, but maybe instead of a 6.5 rate, you're now getting like maybe a 5.75 rate for 30 years. Now the advantage of that is because you've fully bought down the rate, the potential buyers of your house can qualify off that lower payment. And that can open up.
Because it's a permanent lower payment.
It's a permanent buy down. So the lender's allowed to say, okay, when you do a temporary buy down, I can't qualify you on that lower payment. That's not responsible.
Temporary buy down would be like this 2-1 buy down thing.
Yeah, that's temporary. It's not full. I got to go on the high rate. But if you permanently buy it down, I can now use that. So what that can do is actually widen your available buyers. Because a $20,000 price drop changes your payment $20, let's just say. Yeah. And these are just random numbers. But when you permanently buy it down, that might make it a difference of $100. You have more buyers that can qualify. And then last but not least, it might be maybe the buyer's main number one thing is, hey, I can afford the payment. I have no problem with that. And I got the money for the down payment, but I really need help with the closing cost. Well, so maybe what you do is instead of dropping your price 20 grand, you just let the potential buyers out there know, hey, if you want me to pay your closing costs, I'll pay up to $15,000. And that's even less than the 20 grand drop you're going to do. But that gets a lot more attention from buyers. And
we've done this, on the listing agent side of things, we've done this before where we've said, okay, we're going to lower the price like a tiny bit because that gives us an easy excuse to remarket the listing, and it'll re-notify all the potential buyers who have market watch searches set up because we changed the price a little bit. But then as part of that little bit price change, we'll actually say, and we'll give you a concession towards your closing costs with a full price offer, or a rate buy down. I had just not yet had any clients do like a 2-1 buy down. Yeah. So all I'd been thinking about so far was these permanent rate buy downs, and that's another good tool in the toolbox for both a buyer and a seller to be aware of, because buyers, that could be a negiation point for you.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the permanent buy down because it opens up. But again, what I said, let the buyer decide. The buyer knows what they need. They might need cash to close.
And again, this is actually a market conducive to having a conversation like that, unlike what I've spent most of the past decade in.
Yeah. A year ago, you could not, they wouldn't even pass it along.
Oh, it wouldn't even be looked at. Yeah. Adjustable rate mortgages. Okay. I feel like I've been seeing some stuff in YouTube about adjustable rate mortgages. I'm obviously not an expert on that in any way, shape, or form. Quick version here, right? So I'm not going to pretend to be uninformed. I am uninformed in this, right? When I think of adjustable rate mortgages, I think of stuff from 15 years ago where they got a really bad rap because people were taking out these loans that they probably shouldn't have been taking out. Obviously, lending guidelines have changed. What's a scenario where someone might actually want to be looking at an adjustable rate mortgage? Because it seems like there's opportunities for those to make sense. Maybe even not necessarily now, but maybe a little bit more later.
Yeah, so I mean, I think first and foremost, there's nothing evil about an ARM. So adjustable rate mortgage, or ARMs. There's nothing evil about those. There's a lot of differences now versus the past. In the past, you had negative amortization adjustable rate mortgages, which means you're actually paying less than the interest accrued, so your balance was growing. Those are pretty much gone.
Okay.
But then the other big problem was people were able to do these adjustable rate mortgages, and the lenders were qualifying or able to qualify them on the lower payment. Now, in order for a lender to be able to qualify you on that adjustable rate mortgage rate, it has to be at least a 5-year term or longer. So if you're getting a 3-year ARM, the lender has to actually qualify you on a higher rate. So that's just background. What is it? Basically what it says is you're getting an interest rate that's fixed for this certain amount of time. So a 3-1 ARM means it's fixed for 3 years and then starts to adjust thereafter. A 5-1 ARM would be the same. 5 years it's fixed, adjustable. Usually the 1 means it's going to be adjustable every year.
Okay.
More often now we're seeing some of these where there might be like 5-year ARMs and then they're adjusted every 6 months thereafter. But the way it basically works is the interest rate is tied to an index and a margin, okay? The margin stays fixed for the life of your loan. So say that margin is 2%. But then it's tied to an index, and a very popular index right now, it used to be LIBOR, but that's kind of gone away now, it's the SOFR, S-O-F-R. But let's just use prime or something like that. Whatever that index is, the index is what changes from time to time. So as the feds have been, when we talk about feds raising the fed's fund rate, that definitely has an impact on adjustable rate mortgages because they're adjusting the fed's fund rate, which influences these indexes out there. So let's just say I start out with a 2% margin and my index is 2% at the anniversary of my loan. I add those together, I have 4. That's my rate when the ARM adjusts. So maybe I start out with a 3% rate, but 5 years from now, my rate goes into adjusting. Basically, on the day of my adjustment, they say, okay, here's your margin. That never changes. Add that to whatever the index is for that day. Put it together. There's your rate for the next 6 months of the next year.
So the adjustable rate mortgage is very different from like a 2-1 buy down because the 2-1 buy down, it's predetermined. Like, okay, here's your rate this year. Here's your rate next year. Here's your rate moving forward. On an adjustable rate mortgage, it's tied to an index, which we can maybe predict, but in my mind, that's very different because we don't know for sure what that's going to be. So you don't know for sure what your interest rate is going to be later.
Right. On a 2-1 buy down, it's a 30-year fixed rate loan. The investor is being paid on that full interest rate. It's just it's being supplemented the first 2 years through a seller credit.
Okay.
On the adjustable rate mortgage, you have this rate. Now, the advantage of this is, again, most popular right now is the 5 years, the 5-1 ARMs. If you think that rates are going down and you have a very strong conviction on that, if looking at a 30-year fixed rate compared to maybe a 5-year ARM, if the 5-year ARM is enough of a savings and you have the confidence that it's going down, that would be a reason, like, why overpay? I'm pretty confident. Other reasons people might do an ARM is they know that, hey, my employer tends to move me every 3 to 5 years. I'm in that kind of employment position. Or I'm starting out, this is my beginner home, but I really want to move up and we plan to have kids here in 5 years. Whatever the case might be, if you know your expectation is to hold that loan for a short amount of time, maybe a 5-year ARM
That could be
great.
advantageous.
And even if you keep a 5-year ARM, say, for 7 years, it doesn't mean you've lost money because all the interest you saved that lower rate the first 5 years allows you to actually hold that loan longer before you actually start truly paying more for that mortgage than that. So the takeaway here is they're not bad. For me personally, if I can see enough of a savings in the cost of the rate of the ARM versus my 30-year fixed, it's great. If it's only an eighth or a quarter difference, I'm more prone to go with the 30-year because I'm like, yeah, technically if I sold or refinanced in 3 years, I could have saved on that ARM. But if I don't, it's the low cost of insurance for me. So I don't know if that was short, but there you go.
And Joshua, once again, proving the value of using an actual, just complete expert when it comes to the lender / mortgage broker being a part of your team, right? I mean, there's so many ins and outs, there's so much nuance to the conversations here, and everyone's financial situation and goals are going to be different. So I just want to reiterate that there's a vastly different level of service you get when you're using someone like Joshua compared to, just walking into a random financial institution and talking to whoever happens to be sitting behind a desk. And I'm not trying to throw shade, they might actually be very experienced too, they might have some great specific loan products, but there's so much going on, so many different options, and so much guidance and wisdom that you can get from an experienced, skilled, person like Joshua, who's a mortgage broker.
Well, I appreciate that, but I have to throw it right back at you too, Michael, because I'm telling you out there, not all real estate agents are created equal. I know it's really easy to want to go out there and maybe help a friend who just became an agent. Michael and I were both new in our business at some point, but honestly, there is a difference between a person who understands their market, their local market, so trying to use an agent that's out of market, sometimes you're at a disservice. But somebody who understands the market, understands how to negotiate, and I would also say it's really important is who has a strong reputation within the market, because we've said this in the past in other videos, it's not always the highest priced offer that gets accepted. Who your team is matters, particularly if you have a seller who's got other factors like, I don't know, maybe it's an estate sale, or maybe they got to move, they're under contract somewhere else. There's lots of other reasons why people would be willing to take less money for their house and have high confidence on the people on the other side of the transaction. And Michael's that guy, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So hey folks, really appreciate you sticking around. Hope this jam session is helpful for you. And again, let us know in the comments below if you'd like expanded versions of any of these topics or others. We're never too busy for you here, and it's just awesome to get to be an ambassador for our local real estate markets, but also real estate ownership in general, because there's a lot of power to doing this, which is why we don't want you being scared away by what are historically average interest rates.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a lot of opportunity in the market, and owning a piece of the rock matters, and we want you to achieve your goals in that regard. So hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for taking the time, and subscribe and do all that normal YouTube stuff, and check out Joshua's channel too. We'll link it below.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Yes, thanks, and bye for now.